Hi everyone, welcome back to All Things Jira, and I'm back with another story. Now, most of you all know of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Now, this book was written in 1816, and it was about a supposed mad scientist he was determined to reanimate a human corpse. At the time that this book was written, an ash cloud from Indonesia had caused the year without a summer. This ash cloud caused the northern hemisphere to go through a volcanic winter, which caused constant storms and unfavorable weather. Now, Mary Shelley was about 18 years old. She was stuck in the house because of the weather. She was challenged by her husband and a friend to write a ghost story. So they all three were doing a contest with each other on who could write the best ghost story. And at that time, she wrote Frankenstein. Now, this would eventually be considered the first work of science fiction. Now, the story that I'm about to tell you is the true story that inspired that book. So on December 5th, 1802, at 4:30 p.m. in London, George Forster leaves a tavern with his wife and daughter. At about 5 p.m., they were seen taking a walk along the Paddington Canal, and they had lunch there. Later that evening, George was seen at a pub without his wife and daughter. The next morning, a boatman named John Atkins discovered George's daughter's body under the bow of his boat. So he reported this to the authorities, and they ordered him to sweep the canal. And he did that. About 3 days later, the body of George's wife was found. Now, George was arrested for the murders of his wife and his daughter, and he was found guilty. He was sentenced to death and dissection, because at this time, the bodies of murderers were cut up into pieces after they were executed. Now, it was said that this would make it harder for them to rise from the dead on Judgment Day. They also used their bodies for experiments. Now, instead of being dissected, George was taken straight to a man named Giovanni Aldini. Now, he was a physicist and a professor, and he was going to experiment on George's body. Giovanni was carrying on the legacy of his uncle, Luigi Galvani. Luigi used electric currents to animate limbs of dead animals. He did this to countless animals, so much so that the contraction of the muscles was named after him, and it's called galvanism. Luigi was famous for these experiments. His nephew Giovanni was determined to take this further and bring a human body back to life using electric currents to reanimate the dead. Now back to George. An audience of doctors and other spectators gather in an operating theater to watch Giovanni experiment on George Forster. Giovanni connected conducting rods to a powerful battery. Then he applied the rods to George's face. The muscles of George's face started to twitch and his face grimaced, and then one of his eyes even opened. Now this scared the crowd, and many of them began to leave. He started to probe the body with the conducting rod, and the body clenched its fist and punched the air. George's body started to convulse. He arched his back, and his legs kicked and banged against the operating table. Now, at this point, there was banging and clanging. The audience was screaming. There was so much chaos and panic going on. Even one of Giovanni's assistants, Mr. Pass, he had a heart attack and died soon after leaving the theater. Now, honestly, not much more happened with George's body. Giovanni was never able to completely reanimate the body or bring him from the dead. He only managed to have his body parts move and shake and kind of convulse just because of the electricity from the conducting rods. So technically, Giovanni's experiment was a failure. He never brought the corpse back to life. Even though this was a failure, he became very famous for doing this, and he started to tour the world and do these public experiments all over. Now, it was said that Mary Shelley's father was one of the spectators in the audience on the day that he did the experiment on George Forster. So likely, hearing her father retell this story many times years later, this planted the seed for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Although Giovanni never managed to reanimate a human corpse, that particular experiment was a failure. He did create a few other things. He used conducting rods in the brains of people with mental illnesses, and he tried to treat them with those conducting rods and electricity, and that practice was carried on after him. He also invented a very small battery, and that was what he used to attach the conducting rods to experiment on the human bodies. So creating this small battery allowed him to take it all over the place and carry it more easily. Now that small battery is also the basis for the cell phone batteries that we have today. Now at this time the term scientist hadn't been coined yet, but there were so many of these types of public experiments and private experiments going on. They were really trying to get a handle on death and understanding the limits of the human body. There were so many experiments being done on drowning victims and so many animals, and I may talk about those in another video. But that's it for this story today. Let me know what you think about the story in the comments. How do you feel about them experimenting on murders or the animals? And have you ever read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein? If so, leave me a comment and let me know what you think. This was a short video today. This is just a little bonus video. I already posted my weekly video. So thank you all for coming and watching my video. Thank you for all your support. I really appreciate it. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you again next week. Thank you guys. Bye.